Hi guys, welcome to Qissa with the fabulous Harini and the representative of the common man, Aman, aka Aman, that's me. And today we're gonna be here to talk about some very dazzlingly diverse genres of movies, starting off with Guillermo del Toro's adaptation of the 200-year-old horror classic Frankenstein. And the lucky thing that we have today is that one person has not read the novel on which it was based, while the other person has. No prizes for guessing who did what. So we're going to start off with the person who hasn't read the novel to talk about how they thought the movie went.
Yeah, so the movie, usually like this is not the first time he has been depicted in a movie, right? There have been other variations in cartoons, and he's shown to be this scary monster kind of thing. In
Yeah.
this adaptation, it's like you're more empathetic towards the character of the Frankenstein, and it's like portrayed in a way you actually feel bad for the
Mhm.
character, and like overall, the whole movie itself, from the cinematography to the dialogues, it was just so perfect. Everything was so good. I ended up
Right,
crying.
right. I mean, I'm surprised that a Frankenstein movie could make a girl cry, but I guess the author of Frankenstein would be happy. The author of Frankenstein was herself a woman, Mary Shelley, and this book is a sort of milestone in literature because you had a woman who was writing one of the most definitional horror and science fiction stories. So, just to give a little bit of background into how this book came to life, Mary Shelley, her husband Percy Shelley, who was himself a very, very famous poet and who we ourselves have read in our literature classes, went on a vacation in Switzerland and they ended up in the chapel of another famous poet, Lord Byron, who was this very controversial, charismatic figure of the time. And to add some extra context on Lord Byron, not only was he a poet and a playwright and a writer and a lot of other things, he was also the father of Ada Lovelace, who actually created the first algorithm in human history. So, computer engineering owes itself to the guy who also inspired Frankenstein in a way. These
Mm.
guys had come in a chapel in Switzerland. They were planning on hanging out when suddenly a snowstorm hit and they were all stuck at home. So they're all stuck at home and they didn't know what to do. So Byron suggested that they should all sit together over the weekend and they should write a horror story to read to each other. And it was out of that little competition between three people in the house that Frankenstein was born. And there was another doctor in the same house who was Byron's physician. And he decided to write a book about a very charismatic man like Byron who was going around seducing women and leaving them heartbroken. That became Vampire. That is actually the foundation for Dracula and all these books. So Dracula and Frankenstein were born in the same house.
That's interesting to know that
Yeah.
they came out of the same. I didn't know that before.
Yeah. And another thing about Mary Shelley's version of Frankenstein is also that Mary Shelley, before she did Frankenstein, had actually had a miscarriage. So she sort of she was pregnant and she couldn't deliver the child. And a lot of people sort of speculate that, the idea of Frankenstein, where a man gives birth literally to a creature and the child creature grows up without a mother is about not only her own failed pregnancy but the fact that when she was a kid her father had his wife died early, her mother died early on, and the stepmother was not very happy with the closeness between father and daughters. So there was a huge gap that grew between the father and daughters. And Mary Shelley sort of felt like an unwanted child and who was sort of constantly ignored and neglected in the house. And that is also sort of reflected in the relationship between Victor Frankenstein and the creature he creates, because he also behaves like this toxic dad. And the whole idea that Victor's childhood is very troubled and problematic is not there in the novel. This is a completely new addition in the movie. But I think it works very well to like not only draw parallel between the author of the novel and her character, but also give us a certain sense of background into why it's sort of like how flawed parents sort of create a cycle of flawed children and their kids and
Mm.
that sort of generational trauma, that sort of thing you see. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's nice that they added like this background story, not just for his character. I think like we get the background for a lot of characters in this movie.
Yeah.
So it made us like relate or empathize with these characters even more.
Yeah. And another character now that you mentioned is, the person who sort of bankrolls Frankenstein, right? The arms dealer and all that. I don't
Hmm.
know why it's not there in the novel. In the novel, it's actually about how far a person's ego can take you and how destructive an ego can be. So Frankenstein has a perfectly happy family, perfectly normal life. There is no reason for him to go out and try to figure out a way to conquer death. It's purely out of ego. But
Hmm.
I felt like Del Toro in this movie, by adding that arms dealer character who's very rich, who's profiting off of other people's suffering, and who also wants to conquer death, is sort of referring to our current situation where like a lot of our billionaires and like overlords are all obsessed with the idea of conquering death and being transhumans and overcoming humanity with the creation of AI and all. I thought, though it's not explicitly alluded, and maybe it would have been more interesting if we had that version of Frankenstein, that, Frankenstein's monster and all that, but with AI and a robot. That would have been a more modern edition, maybe in a sense.
Hmm.
But I felt like he was also trying to like draw parallel between that and this, because that character is completely non-existent in the book.
And like also the contrast between like Frankenstein and that character, like that character wants to overcome death and put his brain into this creature so that he
Yeah,
could live in some sort of way. And then there's Frankenstein who is like, what is the point of living? I can't even die. I can't even like live.
yeah.
That contrast is, yeah, I thought that contrast was nice.
And also, what did you think of the character of the fiance, who I thought it was very clever that he made the girl play a double role. They made Mia Goth play both Frankenstein's
Ah,
mother
yeah.
and his brother's fiance, and how she develops a bond with the creature. Because in the novel, it's actually that the creature is so fed up with Frankenstein's abuse and neglect that he sort of goes insane and goes on a murderous rampage and he kills the fiance. There's no relationship between the girl and the creature in the book. But here, it's almost like a love quadrangle. Like Frankenstein's in love
Mm.
with her, Frankenstein's brother is in love with her. The
Everyone
creature
is in love with.
the creature, you're not very sure. Is he looking at her like she's his mother, or what, is not very clear there.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't think he was like in love with her or something. It's just
E-
like
Maternal
it was the
affection.
first, yeah, there was that kindness he received from that character
Yeah.
that he got attached.
And talking about the kindness that the creature gets, if you notice, the only other person who's really nice to the creature is a blind man.
Yeah.
So the man who's blind, it does not have any like partiality and convictions, and that is again not present in the book. The creature is almost like this abomination in the book. It's also like sort of with Christian mythology, like, God created Adam and Adam was cast away from Eve, and he got Adam is like a forsaken son and all that. That theme is there in the book, but here the creature is a lot better fleshed out. The relationship and the characters are a lot better fleshed out, and yeah, that I thought that was interesting. Although in a sense they sort of make Frankenstein more sympathetic. He's not as sympathetic in the book. He's
Hmm.
just an asshole. But yeah, I thought the changes were very interesting,
Here,
and
the only reason people were afraid or were people were like, targeting him is like he's different or he looks
yeah,
different. That was the only aspect. Like he wasn't like killing anyone on purpose. And there was nothing as such sort.
yeah, and
So yeah.
there's another thing actually. There is the concept of the monster demanding Frankenstein to create a companion for him. What happens
Hmm.
in the book is actually that it's sort of about the dangers of science losing control. So the monster demands Victor and he threatens him that if you don't find me a companion, I will kill the people you love. So either you're happy and I'm happy. It's like that. But here again, because the monster is made more sympathetic, you notice it's always a bride that Frankenstein asks in the books, but here he doesn't ask specifically for a bride. It's actually
Hmm.
Victor is reflecting his worst aspects onto the monster. So his desire for his brother's fiance, he's projecting onto the monster. So say, oh, now you want a girl, so now you want me to find another abomination for yourself. He never asks him for that very explicitly. So yeah, that aspect is also there in the no, that aspect is different in the book and the movie.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
have you seen any of Del Toro's movies before Frankenstein, or is this your first one?
No, this is my first one. I haven't
Right,
seen it
because
before.
a lot of other Del Toro movies is very famous for his love of monsters. Like there are a lot of these movies where there's scary monsters, right? Like there's
Hmm.
Frankenstein, there's King Kong. Or what he does is he takes those monsters and he makes like very artsy movies around them. Like he tries to locate human loneliness, loss, suffering, female companionship, and all that. It's
Hmm.
it's very fun to watch. It's like you're taking these child like it's like he's saying a child's ideas and he's trying to like ground them in a more adult world and all that, which is very interesting. So, any final thoughts on Frankenstein or Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein?
No final thoughts on Frankenstein. I just wanted to say Oscar Isaac looked very good in the movie.
And not
That not
only
Jacob.
us, right?
Yeah, only
See,
us.
even you have your biases,
And
but I
yeah, all of them did great acting though.
yeah, but I think my final thoughts on Frankenstein would be that, from centuries, people have constantly confused Frankenstein, the creator, with his creature. So they keep calling the creature Frankenstein, which is not necessarily the
Uh,
case. But in a sense, Del Toro sort of, through his movie, sort of justifies why Frankenstein is a monster. And I think then the creature that looks like a monster, it's actually the man who's a monster. And
hmm.
for that, I think he definitely deserves a lot of praise and acclaim.